The Idaho murders were in the news
Mhm.
for the probably the biggest murder case this to start the year. Of course, it happened in December, or I believe November.
November.
Yeah, November, and then obviously it grew over the last few weeks. We had talked on a Twitter Spaces, and I'd already asked you this, but I want the people here to know. There was things, I think there was all this stuff where he's a criminal. Brian Koberger is the main suspect. Um, they talked about how he was in a criminal investigation, like he was in criminal science, I believe his major was. He was a
Yeah.
teacher. He knew these,
Criminology.
yeah,
Mhm.
criminology. He knew these kids through whichever channel. He apparently, I think it came out yesterday that he had visited restaurants that they worked at or something like that.
Yeah.
I asked you the question, did you work with criminals where they believed that they might be outsmarting even themselves with these technologies? Because he turned his phone off at like 4:30 in the morning, and his phone was being tracked and pinged, and then it turns back on at 5:15, and that's when they have somebody leaving, and now him being the suspect, somebody leaving this apartment complex. If you run into a lot of cases where criminals are trying to be smart, or they think they're being smart, but in reality they're almost incriminating themselves with the cell phone issue? I believe it's the most incriminating evidence here.
Yeah, of course. I think, and mostly this guy, I don't know if he was a budding career criminal or not. He certainly wasn't off to a good start, obviously.
No,
But
no.
yeah, these are what we call, well, what we term, a very general term is called forensic countermeasures. And these are something as simple as wearing gloves to not leave fingerprints or DNA behind is a forensic countermeasure, because they know, right? I know forensically I could touch something and leave my DNA. I could touch something, leave a fingerprint. That's forensics. So my forensic countermeasure to that is wear a glove.
Right.
Turning off my phone. I know from watching TV, if I'm Joe Q public,
Yeah.
I know that they can get my phone records. So, when I turn it off, when I go to the crime scene, I'm gonna turn my phone off just before, and I'll turn it on when I leave. So they'll never be able to put my phone in that area.
Yeah.
That's a kind of forensic countermeasure, because they're going to do forensic analysis of your phone records, and so a forensic countermeasure. So there are a whole broad category of forensic countermeasures. Some of them are very good, some of them are very crude. Wearing gloves is a crude method. It's crude but effective in some respects. Now we know from the unsealing of the search warrants that were done on his apartment in Washington State that was unsealed this week, that they pulled a black nitrite glove. Nitrite is kind of like a surgical glove. Now some people do it when they're painting, some people wear it, when they're putting nail polish on, whatever.
Yeah.
But if they have a nitrite glove at the crime scene and one that matches the black glove at the thing, obviously
it's just gathering. It's gathering.
That's a home run. Right. So you use it as a forensic countermeasure, but then you carry it back to your house. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense.
No.
Like most criminals know to throw it away before you get back to your house. So you can see some level of a crude understanding of forensic countermeasures, but not to the point where it was going to do them any good. And so, yeah, like they'll do a forensic, for example, they could do a forensic analysis of his phone records for going back 12 months, say, for example.
Yeah.
And they can do a really detailed analysis and show you blah, 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 all the pinging of his phone, all of it. Yeah. And all of our phones ping all the time, right?
Of course.
And like my phone is rarely off. When I have this little holder, it sits by my bedside, it charges all night, right? It's on.
Yeah. My phone hasn't been off, and I think it'd be a long time. It hasn't died, right. And it hasn't
Most
been
of
off
us are like that, right? We have these little cradles that are by our nightstand. It's my alarm clock now. I don't have a bedside alarm clock. It's my phone, and it sits in this cradle. And so if you do say they do an analysis, say you go back 6 months, and his phone is pinging every day. It's pinging somewhere there, and never in 6 months is there a 3 or 4 hour block where it's not on.
Yeah.
Even when you shut it off. A lot of times, like my wife and I will go to a spa, I'll shut it off, but it's like an hour. It's off for an hour, and it's in this. It pinged in the spa and then it pings in the spa when I turn it back on and the lock on, whatever. So imagine if at trial you show this big chart with all these pings of his phone for the last 6 months, say a year, whatever, and there's no period where it's ever off for 4 hours except one.
Yeah.
One period it's off for 4 hours right around the crime. Well, that's not doing you much good. In fact, it's probably hurting you, because the jury's going to say, here's a guy like the rest of us whose phone is almost on 24/7. And there's 1 4 hour block, right around the murders where it's not on. And so like, that's kind of a crude understanding of a countermeasure, but it's really not, because you just, basically screwed yourself if they find, I'm saying if they do that analysis and it turns out that way, right? That's the way it's going to look.
Did you notice with criminals who were a little bit more hardened, or if you were chasing somebody who you had suspected of committing multiple crimes, where they get cleaner as they go on, where they get better? Because they can't be, I mean, obviously you can't be really good at this. Like I watched the show Dahmer on Netflix. I know it's very popular,
Right.
where he got better at his crime.
Right, absolutely. And
So,
and that's
yeah.
a serial killer. So the last serial killer case I worked was 2011. I